Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Sunday, guys. I'm going to post up the links on the social media real quick, and then we can get started. If you guys are brand new here, basically for our weekly chart analysis, what I do is I go down our whole watch list and I mark up all the zones on the chart for us. So that way you guys can see exactly where to trade and where not to trade for the week. But I'm going to give it a few more minutes. I just sent out the link. We're still a little early. But once this is all sent out, then we can get started. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I can go through any questions you guys have along the way as we go down the watch list. So yeah, just give me a few minutes. Let me post it on the rest of our social media. I think we have the got to put on the Facebook. And then I also got to put it on the, where is it? On the Instagram as well. So let me just put that on real quick. And once we get going, we can get started. All right, guys, so I got everything posted on the social media. So it looks like we're about ready to go. Just going to reiterate what I just said earlier. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the YouTube chat and then I can get through, basically any questions you guys have. But the way that the weekly analysis works is I'm going to be going down the watch list. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be drawing these zones on the chart for you guys. So we're going to see if there's new zones that have been created, for this week. That way, if you're taking like a short position here, you'll know exactly when to move your stop loss because generally when the price reaches these zones, they generally reject right off them. So you can see right here, just looking back at the previous data, you can see that the price generally respects these zones. So if I turn off the momentum indicator, you can see right here, once you guys have these zones on the chart, it pretty much gives you a basic framework as to where to trade and where not to trade. Like right here, price came down, kind of slowed down once it reached these zones. And then once it got to this zone right here, it rejected right off. Same situation, came up to this zone, went to this zone, rejected off. And then it literally just goes from zone to zone. The thing is, these zones over here weren't the same zones that were available last week. So last week was, let's see. So this week started on the 25th right here, right? So obviously these zones were created way back in the past. These zones were created back in September. However, these zones are still important because the thing is if price comes up here, what can possibly happen is it could probably reject right off it, or it can continue up to here and reject off that point. So the thing is, if once you have this basic framework as to identify where the zones are, you can see that if we go back far back in price, these zones have been respected all the way back to, let's see these zones right here that we have that were created last week. These were created last week, but they were tested way back in June of this year and then way back again in April of this year. So you can see that these zones pretty much repeat themselves as time goes along. So price currently right here is coming down. Well, that's what we're anticipating. We're anticipating it to come down. And as it comes down, it's probably going to retest this zone again down here. But what we're going to do is we're going to go and check if there's any new zones, and we're just going to revamp all these zones to follow price accordingly as it's moving right now compared to how it was moving last week. So that's just the basic framework of what we're going to be doing. Basically, we're just going to be going down the list. And if you guys want to go back and rewatch this replay at a later time, you guys can always go back and just rewind because we're going down these in order. So say if we're on GBP USD, if you want to go back and see our markup for like AUD USD, you can just go ahead and rewind it to that specific time frame. And then you guys can go back and look at everything we've analyzed in order because we go down this list right here. So if you guys have any questions for any specific pairs you guys want me to take some time on, like if you guys want me to analyze something more in depth, then feel free to put the pair on the chat. And then as we go down, I'll take more time on that specific pair so that we can analyze it, with regard to any specific moves that can be made during this week. But you guys got to keep in mind that this week is US elections. So the elections, I think, are on Tuesday. So you're probably going to see some crazy movements from now until then, and then possibly the rest of the week. So we're probably going to take this week a little more easier than we have been, in the past, because we just don't want to end up on the wrong side of the chart. Because obviously, with the elections coming on, price can literally spike in either direction, especially for all of the major pairs that are paired with the USD, because obviously, Trump and Biden are two totally different presidents for whoever gets elected. If Trump gets elected, the US dollar might raise higher. So this might continue down further. However, if Biden gets elected, this might go the opposite direction. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens once elections roll around. But just for the time being, we're going to mark up these zones. And throughout the week, if you guys are brand new here, I have the weekly chart analysis. Not the weekly chart analysis. We have like a live trading room, and basically a chart analysis where I can answer any questions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So even though we just mark up the charts today, we're still going to have, more days for us to go more into a deeper analysis as the week goes on, because right now it's only 12:37. So the market opens up in about an hour and a half. When that happens, you're probably going to see some spikes in price as, orders fill in from the weekend. So generally, we're probably not going to take any new trades until about 6 p.m. or 10 p.m. because we want the market to stabilize before we enter anything new. But yeah, so with that said, guys, I'm going to get started. We're going to get started with Odd Cat over here. And then if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and then I'll go ahead and analyze those a little more in depth. Let's see. Happy Sunday, Shawn. Hey, John, happy Sunday. Hope you're ready for a crazy week. I know we've been waiting for this for probably the entire month with the elections coming up. But, with the UK, I think you guys saw the post that I made yesterday with, let's see. Yeah, with the UK, they're going back into lockdown. I believe someone said, I don't know if it was on this chat, but yeah, someone said in the chat that London was going to go into lockdown on Thursday for about a month. So that's a pretty long time. I think during that time, people are probably going to be shorting the GBP and then maybe even the euro as well, because it looks like London is going to be shutting down. It also looks like Germany and a couple other European countries are also going to go into shutdown. So, we'll wait and see how that happens. Maybe that'll work to our advantage. We can just take shorts during that time for the entire month. So let's get started. See, Ismaili said U.S. elections won't affect pairs that aren't paired with the USD, correct? Or do you think it'll affect some of the other ones that somewhat rely on the U.S. economy and relations? Yeah, Ismaili. So I think all pairs are going to get affected. It's not just going to be the U.S. dollar, because the U.S. dollar is, it's a major currency. So basically, if the U.S. dollar is going up or down, it's going to affect pretty much every single pair, because every country is connected to the U.S. in one way or another. Especially the ones that we follow, because we don't follow exotic pairs. If you're trading exotics, then they're probably not going to get as affected. But basically, all of the euro, the euro is going to get affected by the U.S. dollar. So, if the U.S. dollar goes up or down, it's probably going to benefit the euro. However, like I mentioned, the European countries are going back into lockdown, so that's going to affect the market as well. But I think the presidential election is going to affect pretty much every single pair. Even the Aussie dollar, even though that they're in a depression right now, I think it's going to affect every single pair. But we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. I don't know if it's going to affect it too much. It might cause some spikes in price. It might not. But obviously, it's going to affect the US dollar pairs more so than the others. But I think it's still going to have an effect on the other pairs as well, because everything is pretty much connected to the US, one way or another. So I would just be careful overall. I'm trying to think of any pairs that won't be affected, but I don't think there really is, because so the JPY is a safe haven currency. So is the Swiss franc, right? So if the US dollar is weak, strength is going to go to the safe haven currencies like the Swiss franc and the JPY. So the JPY and the Swiss franc are connected to, almost every other pair as well. So the thing is, if they're in strength and the US dollar is weak, then that can have an effect like on odd CHF, even though this isn't a US pair. Same with like Cad Jpy, it could have an effect here as well. So if the JPY gets strong, because the US dollar is weak, we can see this drop. But there's a ton of different things that can happen. There's no like cookie cutter framework where you can correlate everything, because one thing is going to affect another pair regardless, especially if it's the US dollar. So I would be careful this week. If you're going to be trading, I do recommend you lower your risk. Don't take, full lot sizes, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, price could be going in your direction. Like, say you're trading like, odd CHF, price could be going down, and then out of nowhere, it'll just whipsaw. It'll spike up, spike down, spike up. And then if your stop loss is too tight, it could basically hit it. Like, say if you're entering a short right here, and say your stop loss is a little too tight. About like 30 pips or something like that, right? So what could happen here is price could come down, come close to your full TP, and then the elections come out, and then it just spikes right up, stops you out, and then it spikes right back down. So that's what I mean by just lowering your risk, or at least when you make it in profit, always move your stop loss in profit, just to eliminate your risk and to cover your positions, because you never know what's going to happen as we approach the elections. The elections are coming in 2 days, and for some instances, it might have like a late reaction. So you might not see any spikes in price right on Tuesday, but on a Wednesday, you might see some spikes all over the place. So I would just be careful. I would still trade. A lot of people are just staying out of the market, but I would still trade if you see good entries. However, I would just always remember to protect your positions, because that's the main problem with a lot of traders. A lot of traders will just get too overly confident, and they won't move their stop loss in profit. And then, price could have been 100 pips in profit, but they were just too prideful to move their stop loss in profit, and it ends up reversing on them and hits their stop loss. They basically threw away profits right there. So, just keep that in mind if you're taking trades this week. But everything is kind of tied to the US dollar. So we'll go over and we'll try to see as the market moves this week, and then we'll make our inferences from there. All right, guys, so let's get started. So we have our odd CAD right here. I still have mine active. A lot of people were asking about odd CAD last week. I still have it active right now. The spread's crazy. It's like 15 pips. That's why I'm negative 115 right now. I have like a, it is a 1.3 lot size, a standard lot. So this is fine. I think this is going to come back down. But, we're just going to have to be patient with it. Like I said, I don't think you guys should enter any new positions until maybe 6 p.m. tonight, because we have to let the market stabilize. But if you guys still have active positions, you're fine. I wouldn't be too worried about it. I'm not going to see like crazy spikes right on open, hopefully. We'll probably see some spikes for like the GBP, because they announced their lockdown. Same with the Euro pairs. But for other certain pairs, I don't think it's going to be that crazy. But okay, so let's get started. So guys, what I do first when I mark up my charts is I take off all of the zones from last week. So here are all the zones taken off. I'm not going to delete all, because I still have this position open right here. But basically what I do is I take off all of the zones, I zoom out, I turn on the K²SR indicator, and then there are the zones on the chart. So once we have the zones on the chart, I go and I just redraw my zones right over them. So right there. Right there. And sometimes if you guys are brand new here, sometimes if the zones overlap, then I just create one big zone instead of drawing a bunch of small zones, because we're going to avoid that area regardless. Because like I mentioned here, I'll just show you guys once we're done drawing these, I'm going to show you guys why I would prefer to have bigger zones versus little zones. So I'll probably just make this one big zone right here, and then I'll connect these zones down here. And then in this situation right here, we don't have a lower zone. So what I do is I go on the higher time frame. I'm currently on the 4 hour. I'm going to go on the 8 hour. And then I'm going to draw my zone down here, because we always want to have a lower zone and an upper zone from where price currently is. So I'm going to go back to the 4 hour time frame. I'm going to turn off the K²SR indicator. I'm going to zoom out. And you guys can see that once we have these lined up right here, you can see that these zones were created for this, specific time period. But you can see that those same zones have been tested so many times in the past. Like you can see this upper zone right here was tested in September. It was tested again in August, again in July, and so on. Like you can see right here, we just created this lower zone right here today, but you can see that this lower zone was tested way back in May. And then this lower zone down here was tested way back in April. And even if you go farther back, you can see that history always repeats itself. So if you guys have these zones on the chart, it's going to give you an upper hand as to know where to trade and where not to trade. So say if you're taking a buy here, you're not going to, ride this up. If you take a buy right here, you're probably going to move your stop loss and profit at this point, because odds are it's probably going to reject right off it. Same situation if it's going in the opposite direction. If price is coming down right here, it's probably going to consolidate a little bit, and then it'll decide whether it wants to reject off it or if it's going to break through it, or if it causes a fake out like it did right here. But like I mentioned, these zones are created from this week, but they go way back until October of last year. See, October 2019, the same zone has been tested so many times in the past. So it's going to be a strong zone to look out for. So going back over here where price currently is, we currently have a sell position. And the reason for that is because if we turn on the momentum indicator, momentum is still coming down, right? So basically, if momentum is coming down like it is right here, so here's an example. We had a sell momentum right here. Price broke this zone. We would have taken a short position right here because we would have anticipated that price was going to come down from this zone to test this zone right here, which is exactly what happened, right? So same situation right here. Price rejected off this zone. We got a buy signal. And then look what happened. From here, it went back and tested this zone right here. So it's literally bouncing from zone to zone, right? So same thing happened again. Like I mentioned, history always repeats itself. So again, right here, price comes and tests this zone. It rejects off it. We get a sell signal, right? So once we have the sell signal, what we're doing is we're anticipating price to come from this point to retest this zone down here. So that's why we have a sell position currently active. It's still active right now. It hasn't hit TP1, so I'm still in the trade, just like everyone else if you took it last week. So that's why we anticipate it to come down further, because if you just look at the charts here, it literally does the same thing over and over again. Right here, we had a sell signal. And then once we have this, we wait for price to break the zone like it did right here. We probably wouldn't have taken this trade because it was so close to this zone, because look what happens. Price comes to this zone, rejects off it, comes up to here, rejects off it, and literally just keeps rejecting until it breaks one of the zones, right? So price kept coming around. And then as it broke the zone right here, there was enough space for us to take this trade here to catch this next zone for about 30 pips. So right here, if we wanted to take a sell position, we would have taken a short position right here and then wrote it down to this zone for full TP. So that's just a basic demonstration as to why we took this trade here and why we are identifying these zones. Because if you put 2 and 2 together, you're able to identify the zones, and then you're able to identify momentum. You're going to know exactly where to trade. And then obviously you're going to know when to get out of the trade, because you don't want to trade once it gets close to these zones. Because what happens when it gets close to these zones is it usually rejects off it or it breaks below it. So it's like an area of manipulation here, because price can go one way or the other. And the main thing is you don't want to end up on the wrong side. Let's see. Velocity said, is there any way you can share your charts with members so we can copy them? What if our zones aren't exactly like yours, or it doesn't need to be precise, just generic? I would say it needs to be precise, because the thing is, if you're off by a few pips, that could be the difference between you losing a trade and you winning a trade. The only way to get the same exact zones is if you have the indicators. So if you want to trade exactly how we trade, then you're going to have to get access to the K2 indicators. That's the whole point of it, because it's proprietary. I've created this algorithm to identify these zones here. So if you want to have access to the zones, then you can go ahead and subscribe to the indicators on the website. You just go to our website at k2trades.com. And when you go on the website, you can sign up for your access to the indicators down here. We still have the trial going on. That's the whole point of this. If this was something that anyone else could do, then, people wouldn't subscribe to K2, but this gives you the edge in the market. This will easily cover your subscription with like 1 or 2 trades. So if you really want to step up your game, your trading game, then, obviously get access to the K2 indicators. But, this is just to give you guys a little good understanding as to like how we trade and like where to avoid trading. Obviously, if you're taking a short position, I'm not going to tell you to take a sell once it's down here, because once it gets down here, it's probably going to reject right off it. So if you want the exact parameters, then just sign up for the K2 indicators. Otherwise, I'm going to give you guys these closest zones right here. But obviously, you know, if you're drawing these zones on your own, they're not going to be exact because these are all computer generated zones. Like these zones have been created by the K2 algorithm. So if I hide this off the chart, you know, there's no way someone's going to outsmart the computer. The computer knows exactly where the rejection points are. So that's why, you know, having precise zones is going to be super important, because if you're off by a few pips, like, so say right here, say if you try to eyeball this, right? Say if you try to eyeball this zone right here and you're off by a few pips, like say you were off like down here, that could be the difference between you getting out in profit or you getting stopped out because it would have reversed on you heavily right here. So that's why you have to be super on point. That's why I give you these numbers here, but I'm only giving you guys the zones that are nearest where price currently is. So if price breaks this zone, so if price comes, you know, down here and breaks the zone, you're not going to have this lower zone right here unless you have the K2 indicators, this zone down here, because I'm only going to be giving you guys this zone and this zone right here. Velocity, I have access to the indicator. What I'm referring to? Oh yeah, velocity. If you have access to the indicator, then you should have the same exact numbers. Like your numbers shouldn't be any different at all because we're looking at the same thing. Let's see. Business Paying said one question in a downtrend. If the trade is starting, my question. All right, I'm gonna skip your question real quick. Business Paying. I'm gonna go back to Velocity real quick because we were still talking about his question earlier. So Velocity said, make your own zone with the version 2 SR and that's it. But I'm making my own zones with the indicators will be precise like yours because mine. I mean, it should be the same. I don't see why there would be a difference. So here's the thing. If you were drawing here, let me just draw another. I'm gonna open another chart here because it shouldn't really make a difference. If I'm combining the zones, your zone should be still similar to mine. So I'm just gonna redraw the zones here again, but I'm gonna draw them exactly like without combining them. So let's see if I. So see if you're drawing your zones like this, because I think this is what you're doing, right? You're drawing like each individual zone. You're probably drawing something like this. So this is why your zones might look a little different. You're probably you're drawing like each individual zone. But even if you're doing this, here, let me just show you real quick. All right, so this is probably how your zones might look, Velocity. I'm not sure if this is how yours look or if it's even more different, because I'm not sure how you draw yours, but if you draw yours the same way I do, see like right here, we have a big zone, but over here, these are just two small zones. But the thing is, even if you had these two small zones right here, you wouldn't be trading within this little area right here because it's only about 3 pips, right? You're not going to have enough to cover spread to make it in and out of this little zone. So that's why I just connect these two, because it's impossible for you to trade within here because the spread's going to be too wide and you're not going to be able to get in and out of a trade, similar to how it is right here. So you can see right here, I drew a big zone, right? This is probably what your zone looks like because you drew separate zones. However, these zones are too close to each other. They're only 6 pips. So if you were to enter this trade, you would barely be able to cover spread before you can get in and out with profit. Or maybe not even cover spread because the spread for odd CAD is kind of high. So I'm not sure if this is how yours looks, but maybe you can send me a chart, Velocity, and then I can take a look to see what you did differently. But even if you were drawing every single zone, it would still look the same because these little areas right here, like these little pockets, they're not going to be enough space for you to take a trade. You know, obviously, if you're going to take a trade, it'd have to be in this big move right here for about 25 pips. because you can pretty much ride that little wave from this zone to this zone. However, you can't ride, you know, a little wave from this zone to this zone, because you could technically take this, but it would be risky. But it's not, you know, it's not within the game plan, where you want to make sure that there's enough space for you to enter a trade. So we wouldn't take a buy right here, but we take a buy up here, because we could ride this from this entry up to here, right? So I'm not sure if if we're on the same page. Maybe if you can just send me a screenshot of your chart, then I can go over it. If you want to send it to me on, you can send it on here, or you can send it on Telegram, and then maybe we can go over it to see what's different. But this is probably the main difference between my chart and your chart, if you're drawing the zones exactly how they are right here, because they can be a little different. They don't need to be exactly on point. However, you know, obviously if you want them to be like mine, you just have to connect the zones that are too close, because like these zones right here, they're obviously too close. So I just made one big zone right here. Same down here. These are too close. So I made big zone right here. Same thing with down here, and same thing with down here as well. But yeah, I'll just wait for you to message me if you want to send me your chart, and I can pull it up on the screen here, and then we can see how yours looks different. However, I think this is, you know, it's a small difference. It's not going to be that big. So if it's like this much of a difference, it's not much to worry about, because you're still going to be able to identify these big zones where they actually reject from. I just personally like it to be a lot cleaner. So like right here, obviously you still see the rejection points, but if you look at my chart right here, it's a lot cleaner, because you can just avoid these big areas right here. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Business Ping's question. One question: if a downtrend, if the trades start going up with higher low, and when expect to last high and make double top, can we expect a lower low or range to be starting? Business Ping, you'd have to send me like an example, because I'm kind of confused with your question. Let's see. So your question says one question. So you're saying if it's in a downtrend and the trade starts going up with a higher low, when went to last high. Yeah, if you can send me an example, Business Ping, because I'm like super confused with your question. Because the thing is, I'm assuming you're probably saying something to like this right here, right? So this is probably an example of what you mean, because right here, price was in a downtrend, and then you said that price came up, and then it was let me see, your question said with a higher low. So this is a lower low, a lower high, lower low, and then it swung up right here for a higher low, right? So I think this is what you kind of are referring to. And then your question is, can we expect a lower low or a range to be starting? So the thing with that is, oh wait, let me go back. Let me see. It said, make a double top. Can we expect? I mean, that's not necessarily going to happen every time, because right here it hits, like you mentioned, a double top. And then you're asking if we can expect it to go into a range or a lower low. I mean, this doesn't indicate that it's going to go into a range at all, just because it establishes like a double top right here. If it establishes double top, it can still break through it, or it can come back down. What we anticipate is that it's going to come back down, because we're using the momentum indicator. What we're doing is we're just identifying where momentum is. So if I turn on the momentum indicator, see, we're identifying the direction of momentum. And what we're doing is we're just riding this momentum to the next zone, like how all of our entries are. I think you're trying to focus more on price action, and I don't trade price action because I don't think it's very accurate. The thing is, if you're trading price action, you have to tie it in with something else. If you're just trading strict price action, like I'm assuming that's what you mean by it, because you said you saw a double top and then you're predicting that it's going to go into a range. However, that doesn't always happen. Even if it hits a double top, it can either it could break through it and continue upwards, or it can reject off it and come back down. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to reject back down every single time. It can always break above, or like you said, it can range. But the range and the rejection isn't going to be the only options. It can also break right through it. So I think your analysis is a little flawed. I think you have to go back and understand what you're looking for, because obviously you need to have something extra giving you that confirmation, because just because there's a double top doesn't mean that it's going to go into range or that it's going to reject off it. It can also break above it. So you have to have some other confirmation. That's why we use the momentum indicator, because like you mentioned right here, this double top, right? We had the double top, we had a sell momentum right here. So if we tie those two together, obviously we're going to anticipate that it's going to come back down. But if you don't have a momentum indicator, you would need something else to give you extra confirmation, because, so I'm just going to go back to replay this right here, because the thing is, even though it's hit this top right here, what's going to be your confirmation that it's going to come back down, or that it's going to range, or that it's going to break above it? For us, we use the momentum indicator. So like I mentioned right here, if we're looking at this as it's happening, see, this gives us a clear indication that it's going to reject off it. Like there's no guesswork here, because we saw the rejection off the K2SR zone, and then we got a sell signal. So once we got that, we can enter a short position right here, and then we let it run, and then it would be currently in profit right now. So there's like a ton of different ways for you to identify this. For us, we use momentum. I'm not sure what you use, because I'm not sure if you have access to the indicators, but I wouldn't just take a lucky guess just because you see the double top there that it's either going to go into a range or it's going to reject off it. You would have to use some other sort of confirmation. And I'm not sure how you trade, because I'm not sure if you trade K2 or if you trade your own specific way. There's no one way to trade, but as long as you have that confirmation there, then you'll be able to identify whether it's going to range or it's going to reject, or if it's going to break right through. Like right here, if we had a buy signal, so say if we had this right here, because the thing is we had a buy signal right here, right? So if price was to break this zone right here, then instead of us taking a sell down here, we would have taken a long position right here. So that's what I mean by there's a ton of different scenarios. But it would just really depend on how you analyze the chart. There's no wrong way to trade, like I mentioned before, but it just really depends on how you trade, because not all analysis are going to line up the same. But if you are trading price action, which is what it seems like, I think you should definitely have one more confirmation just to confirm the direction after this double top here. Because I wouldn't just guess that it's going to go into a range or that it's going to reject off it. I would need something else to confirm that move. All right, so let me just give you guys the parameters for this odd CAD, and then I'm gonna move on to the next one so I can show you guys another example. So right here, this upper zone over here is gonna be 0.93917, and this lower zone down here is gonna be 0.92531. So that's it for odd CAD right there. Velocity, I don't know if you sent me the your chart. If you could send me your chart, I can take a look at it, but I don't think I see anything over here at all. Let's see. Yeah. All right, cool. So I don't see the message from you, Velocity, but if you send me your chart, we can go over and look at what looks different. But let me keep going to the next one. So the next question is from Hassan. Hassan's asking, can you do another example of drawing the zones using another pair? Because sometimes the indicator gives a bunch of zones, and I feel like when you connect them, some zones are massive. Is that okay? So Hassan, the reason why I connect them, so let's go back to another pair, right? So let's go right here to odd CHF. I'm gonna zoom out, I'm gonna delete everything, turn on the K2SR indicator. So the reason why I connect these zones right here, so I see what you mean, like, there's a ton of zones right here, right? The reason why I would connect all of these zones in this area is because there's only 6 pips right here, right? The spread for odd CAD is generally gonna be about 6-7 pips. So the thing is, if you enter this trade, you're going to be in the negative 7 pips. So it's impossible for you to make any profit, because you have to pay the spread going into the trade, and you got to pay the spread going out of the trade. So you would have to move at least 12 to 14 pips for you to make even 1 pip profit, right? So that's why you would avoid trading within this zone right here. I'm not sure what you mean by like huge zones, because the thing is, here, let me go back to odd CAD, and let me just turn on. Yeah, so like right here, if you map this right here, it's only a 14 pip move. So obviously that's why we connect these zones right here. Same situation with this zone right here. This is one full zone. So that's why we would just connect this zone together. It's fine if they're big zones, because the thing is you don't want to get stuck within a zone right here, because let's check this out. This zone right here, from right here to down here, is only 20 pips. So the spread right now is about 14 pips. So it's going to be impossible for you to make a profit off that. That's why we would trade within these open areas versus trading where the zones are too close. So it's fine if the zones are too big, but the reason why they're big is because, see, it's about a 15 pip move from here. And then if you move within this little zone right here, it's only 6 pips. So you're not going to make any profit off there, because say if you entered a short position right here, it would have rejected on you. And then you would have went straight into drawdown, right? So that's why we would have avoided that trade, because the zones are too close to each other. But yeah, let me go back to odd CHF, and then I'll just try to redraw these zones here. So this is another smaller zone. So you can see right here that these two kind of connect, right? Because this zone right here is only 6 pips away from the next zone. So if that happens, we're just going to connect these two into one zone. So this entire zone is going to be 14 pips. However, there's a zone within the zone. So technically this is only about 6 pips. And then again, down here, this is only 6 pips as well. So if you tie those two zones together, it makes 12 pips, but it technically makes them two 6 pip zones. So that's why we connect those together. Same situation right here. We connect this zone to this one. However, if we map this right here, there's 10 pips from this zone to this zone right here. So it would make no sense for us to trade within this little area, because the spread's so wide. So that's why we're going to connect this zone into one big zone. And then on top of that, there's another zone right here. So basically the sweet spot for the zones is enough for you to cover the spread twice. So I know that the spread's wide right now because the market's closed. However, the normal spread's about like 10 pips. So basically you want to be able, I mean, it's not 10 pips. It's like 10 to 12 pips total. So you want to make sure that you can cover the spread and get in and out of the trade without, getting caught in any of these rejection points. So that's why some of these zones are a little wider than others, because there's so many zones within them. So there goes another zone right there. And then we'll connect another zone down here. And it doesn't matter if the zone's too wide. The main point is that you have an idea where the rejection points are. Because the thing is, if I know you're familiar with K2 just like everyone else, we like to take trades that are almost guaranteed to hit TP. We don't take any risky trades. If the price is too close to a zone, then we're just going to avoid it. So that's why we have these wide zones right here, so that we can identify, where the rejection points are going to be at. Because obviously, if you're going to be taking risks where it's super close to the next zone, then that's going to add, more risk to your entire position, because you can, your odds of hitting stop loss or a price rejecting on you is going to be a lot more, I can't think of the word, a lot more obvious, I guess, like something like this right here. So this zone right here is wide, right? But if we had the zone like connected to this point, you might have taken a sell position because you saw price break below the zone. However, if the zone is wide right here, obviously we wouldn't have taken a trade because price had a few more pips to go down until it reaches bottom area. Because the thing is, if you so let's see, say you drew a zone like right there, and then you saw this, price break below it, you would have taken a short position right here, and then price would have rejected on you immediately, and you would have had stop loss. However, if you connected the zone all the way down here, you could have easily avoided this from, reversing on you. So this is the main reason why we have, wider zones versus making them very small. Yeah, no problem, Hassan. I know it might look a little confusing at first, but I think, once you do it enough times, you're going to be more and more familiar with these areas. Because like I mentioned, if you go back, so I'll finish drawing these zones right here. If you go back and then you just see how this zone has been tested in the past. So price is currently right here, right? So if I zoom out, you can see that price is right here right now. And then you can see that the same exact price point was tested back in May, June, February, January, And then even farther back too, let's see how far does it go back. So it's tested even way back in August of 2015. So you can see that these same exact zones that we've just drawn today have been tested way back in 2015. So if price is tested way back then, odds are these are some strong zoned areas. So that's why it's kind of better for you to have bigger zones versus having smaller zones, because you want to be more careful when taking trades. Obviously, you want to focus on more quality trades versus the quantity of trades, because if you're able to lock in more wins and less losses, you're going to end up in profit at the end of the month regardless. But okay, so here for odds CHF, the closest upper zone over here is going to be 0.64547. And this lower zone right here is going to be 0.64401. So that's it for odd CHF right there. Let's move on to the next one, odd JPY. And then I'm just going to look to see if the zones line up with last week's zones, because if they are, there's no point in us drawing brand new zones. So if I hide these right here, you can see that the zones line up perfectly with last week's zones, because the odd JPY didn't really move that much, all of last week. So you can see right here that they all line up perfectly. So in that situation, we're not really it's not going to be necessary for us to redraw the zones, because they're in the same exact point. The only difference is that this zone right here created a lower zone on this point. So in that situation, we just go ahead and make this a little longer, because the price from this zone to this zone is only 9 pips. So the spread's 14 pips right now. The spread for odd JPY is generally about 3 to 5 pips. So if you multiply that by 2, that's about 10 pips, right? It's not going to be enough space for you to get in and out of the trade within that little gap right there. So we're just going to connect those two zones. And there you go. So this upper zone right here is going to be 73.749. And this lower zone down here is going to be 72.515. So those are going to be the two rejection points. So say if price comes up right here, that upper rejection point that I gave you guys, it might either break above it or it can reject right off and come back down. Odds are it's probably going to come back down, because the Aussie is in a depression right now. And the JPY is a safe haven currency. So if one currency is not doing well, odds are money's going to go towards the safe haven currency. And with the elections coming up, a lot of people are probably going to put their money in the JPY and CHF as well. So those are the two zones for odd JPY. Let's move on to odd NZD. Let me zoom out from here. So we're on the K2SR indicator. And it looks like zones are pretty much the same. This zone is gone. I'll delete that. But pretty much everything else looks pretty much the same. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to draw a lower zone here, because this zone isn't there anymore and this isn't there either. So I'm going to go on the 8 hour. There's a zone right there, but it's irrelevant because price is way down here. Go on the daily. All right, so on the daily right here, price is actually within the zone currently. So this is going to be a little tricky because price is within the zone. Let's check where the momentum's going. Momentum's coming down. So right here, what can happen is we do have some bullish candles. What might happen is it might come up a little bit, or it might even come crashing down. So as soon as market opens, it can either push up and test the zone, or it can just come down and break this zone right here. But once it breaks this zone down here, then we can probably take a short position and ride this thing down. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens when the market opens. Market opens in about 45 minutes. So we have some time. But it does have a sell momentum here. So odds are it's probably going to come down. It's also on a very strong downtrend. So if you just look at the downtrend from here, this downtrend is super strong. So if it does break below that zone, odds are price is probably going to continue down further. But we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. Market's going to be a little crazy when it reopens, and especially since the elections are coming up in a few days. So this upper zone right here for odd NZD is going to be 1.06525, and this lower zone down here is going to be 1.05817. move on to the next one. Here's odd USD. I'm going to, so it looks like there's a lot of new zones here. So I'm just going to delete everything, start fresh. Draw this zone right here. So if you guys have any questions for any specific pairs, feel free to put it in the chat, because I know I'm going to speed through these a little faster because nobody's really asking any questions about the Aussie pairs. So unless you guys want me to analyze it for any of your specific entries you guys have active right now, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to draw these zones because we're still going to have our live trading rooms during the week where we can analyze these a little deeper, because it's kind of hard for us to analyze them in detail right now because the market's closed. So the price hasn't moved yet. You know, odds are when the market reopens, there's probably going to be a spike up or a spike down. And then once that happens, we can go ahead and identify, you know, our entries from that specific time period. But currently right here, the lower zone for odd USD is going to be 0.70206. And this upper zone right here is going to be 0.70554. Those are the two zones for odd USD. And then we will move on to the next one, Cad Chf right here. So I'm going to turn on this K²SR indicator. It looks like there's a couple new zones. So I'm just going to start fresh, delete everything off there, zoom out, draw my zone right here. Zone right there. Zone right there. And Hassan, here's another thing too. So if the zones are kind of big and they're far from current price, like price is way down here and you know, this zone's up here, that's why I create a big zone, because this zone is a little irrelevant at this point in time. However, as the week goes by, if price pushes up further, then I'll just go up and redraw these zones up here. But currently it's kind of irrelevant because I do anticipate this to continue down further. So that's why I draw these bigger zones up here, because I'm not really looking at these areas since they're kind of relevant at the specific time period. So I'll draw this zone right here and then this lower zone right here. I'm not going to bother with anything lower than this because we do have the upper and the lower zone. However, if price breaks below here, then I'll go on the higher time frame and I'll draw some newer zones down here as well. So looking at Cad Chf over here, this upper zone over here is going to be 0.68895. And I'm just going to avoid this one because price is within it. This lower zone down here is going to be 0.68612. And that's it for Cad Chf. Move on to the next one, Cad Jpy. So I'm not sure if anyone still has this position active. This did hit TP2 like way down here for I think about 27 pips. So I got out of this trade at TP2. However, if you guys are still in it, I think it should be sort of fine because like I mentioned with the elections coming up, you know, strength is probably going to go to the safe haven currency, JPY. So if the JPY gains in strength, then we're going to see this come down further. Also, I think Canada is back in like lockdown or something, right? So if they're back in lockdown, then odds are it's probably going to keep going down further. But let's check out the zones. If the zones are the same, then we can just leave it alone. If not, we'll draw some new zones. Okay, so let's see. So yeah, the zones are a little new. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete all these zones and I'm just going to redraw them. All right, zoom out from here. This one's a little tricky because a lot of them do overlap a lot. So I might have to measure them to see if they're enough space in between. So all of these are pretty close. See if they're these are like about 12 pips right there. 6, 7 pips right there. 12 pips right there. So if they're generally the sweet spot's about, I'd say about 20, 25 pips. If there's no gap between the zones for 20 to 25 pips, then I just create a big zone. And since price is way down here, it's kind of irrelevant. So we can just create one big zone right here because price is probably not going to shoot way up here within this week. So these zones are probably going to erase by the time we start the following week. So let's just draw one big zone right here. And then like I mentioned before, if price ends up shooting up this far up, then we can go ahead and just draw another zone. Like we can delete the zone and draw the smaller zones within. However, currently it's just irrelevant for us to really focus on this area up here because price is way down here. This is way more important for us to be focusing on. So right here, this could be one zone and this could be one zone as well. But like I mentioned before, price right here is only 4 or 5 pips from the next zone. So it's going to be impossible for us to trade within this little area. So we're just going to create one big zone right there. And then we got one zone right here. And then we got one bigger zone right here as well. All right, so I'm going to look for a lower zone because price might break below. Like I mentioned, price is probably going to keep pushing down further. So let's see. So this zone right here, let's see how far is it from this one on the 8-hour. It's only about 10 pips, right? So since that's the situation, I'm just going to go ahead and move this down a little further right there. But like I mentioned, we still need to figure out what this lower zone is going to be down here. So we'll go on the daily, and there we go. We got this lower zone right there. So this is why I recommended closing your positions in profit, or if you guys follow the exit strategy, you guys would have already known, because our full TP is way down here, but price rejected off this zone. So the thing is, price might just range within these two zones before either breaking above or breaking below. But I do think it's going to break below because, like I mentioned, elections are coming up. Strength is probably going to go to the safe haven currencies like the JPY and CHF. And I think Canada is like in lockdown right now as well. So I don't expect this to, recover anytime soon, unless the lockdown was lifted. I don't know if it was or not, but I'm not too familiar with what's going on in Canada right now. But yeah, this upper zone right here is going to be 78.751. And this lower zone right here is going to be 78.368. Let's move on to the next one, CHF JPY. And if you guys have any questions about these, about any specific pairs, it's okay if you guys don't want to ask them now, because like I mentioned, the market's not even open. So when the market opens, price can spike, up, or it could spike down. So it's going to be hard for us to really analyze where price is going to go until the market opens, because the thing is, we like to react to price, like when price is actually moving. We don't want to react when price is not moving at all, because the last thing you want to do is analyze this for a sell, and then as soon as the market reopens, it spikes up, right? Because you would have wasted your time analyzing that, because a lot of things can happen over the weekend causing price to either spike up or spike down. So if you guys want to analyze it, I'd recommend you probably wait until the market actually opens. But currently, I just want to draw these zones so you guys have an edge in the market and you guys understand where the rejection points are. So let's turn on the K2SR indicator. See if the zones match up. The zones look exactly the same. So if you see that, these are where the zones are. I turn on my zones, same exact place, right? So in that situation, we don't have to redraw the zones. I'm just gonna hide this right here. And I'm gonna give you this upper zone right here, which is gonna be 114.196. And this lower zone down here is gonna be 113.702. Reason why I give you those two zones is because these areas are just too close. So the thing is, I might just keep ranging within the zone before it either breaks above it or breaks below it. This is going to be a bit of a tricky pair because this is the Swiss franc versus the JPY, both safe haven currencies. However, I think a lot of Europe is going back into lockdown, right? I don't know if the CHF is going to lockdown as well, but if they are, which is a high possibility, then this is probably going to continue down further. So I would have a sell bias for this specifically. But yeah, so those are the two zones for CHF JPY. Let's move on to the next one, Euro odd. Let's see if the zones are the same. Hide this right here. So yeah, you can see there's a zone right there, same zone from last week. Literally all the zones are in the same exact spots. So no need to redraw these zones. Okay, hold up. So this zone right here is a little different. So let's delete these two. I'm just gonna redraw these zones. It's kind of relevant because price is way up here, but we're just gonna redraw them anyways. So we got that lower zone right there. And then we got another lower zone right here. All right, so I'm gonna hide the indicator. This upper zone right here where price currently is going to be 1.65733. And this lower zone down here is going to be 1.65364. So those are the two zones right there for Euro odd. Move on to the next one, Eurocad. Turn on the K2SR indicator. It looks like there's some new zones that have been created down here. So I'm just going to do this from scratch, delete the zones, zoom out from there, turn the rectangle. We got that upper zone, but you can see that this zone right here kind of connects to both of them. So I'm just going to stretch this out down there as well. We got this zone right here. And I'm going to add this lower zone because it's pretty close. Eurocad's a bit of a messy pair too. So you're going to see some pairs where they're a lot cleaner than others. You're going to see some that are a lot messier than others. So if that's the case, it's better to just create one big zone because you just want to know the areas where they have a higher probability of reversing on you. Because like I mentioned, that's probably going to be the worst, like literally the worst thing that can happen to you is if you enter a trade and it reverses on you immediately because you're like within a zone. All right, so we got all those zones lined up right there. Zoom out. Looks like nice rejection zones right there. So this is where price currently is. This upper zone is going to be 1.55406. And this lower zone right here is going to be 1.55011. So if we look at the momentum indicator, we have a sell momentum right here, right? So if price breaks below the zone, you can be ready for a short position right there. So that's it for Eurocad. Let's move on to the next one. Eurochf. We have about 30 minutes left until market opens. So I'm going to try to speed through this, guys, so you guys have your zones ready and lined up so that once the market reopens, you can be ready to start looking for trades. So looking at Eurochf right here, let's turn on the indicator. Let's hide the zones. You can see that the zones line up perfectly with last week's zones. So in that situation, we don't really need to, there's a zone right here that was created last week. So we're just going to pull this down a little bit. We have this lower zone down here. And then this lower zone down here as well. So everything's lined up. We're just going to hide the indicator. And price is now within these two zones. So this upper zone right here is going to be 1.06886. And this lower zone down here is going to be take that back. It's 1.06545. And those are the two zones within the current radius of price. Next pair right here, EG. We'll turn on the K2SR indicator. Delete this one. It's not there anymore. Everything else looks perfectly fine. It looks like there is a new small zone right there. We're just going to pull this down a little bit just to cover that zone. Hide the indicators. And we need a lower zone here because price already broke below it. So let me check the indicator right here. Sorry, not that one, the momentum indicator. So we do have a sell momentum right here. This happened on Friday, I think, right before market closed. So that's why we didn't enter this sell. However, it looks like there's still an opportunity for a sell right here for it to come down. However, over the weekend, they did announce that, you know, London, UK was going to be shutting down for lockdown. So I wouldn't take this trade because if that's happening, this might shoot up. However, I think Germany is going to lock down too. So what might happen here is it just might go sideways until something happens in the news that benefits one or the other currency. So we don't have a lower zone here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the higher time frame, the 8 hour. Nothing there, right? So I'm going to go on the daily. There we go. So we have the lower zones right here. So this is going to be a little bit of an issue because the price is right here and this zone is so close. So I'm just going to draw a horizontal line right here. Sorry, wrong one. I'm going to draw a ray because I don't want it to connect all the way down. There we go. So we got that right there. And I'm going to draw a lower zone down here as well. So looking at current price actually rejected off this daily K2SR level right here. So I actually wouldn't enter this yet. I would wait for price to close below it because we do have the zone right here. So once price closes below the zone, then we can probably enter a short position from there. So just be patient with that if you guys are looking at EG. However, I personally wouldn't even trade EG right now because of their current lockdown situation. But if you guys are looking at it, this upper zone right here is going to be 0.976. And this lower zone right here is going to be 0.89926. So those are the two closest zones right there. Something to look out for. Move on to the next one, EJ. So we're looking at EJ right here. Let me check the zones if they line up with last week's. Yeah, so these zones line up pretty much the same. However, this zone created a new one right here. So I'm just going to pull this up a little bit. Other than that, we just need a lower zone because no lower zone has been created. Go on the 8 hour, nothing there. Go on the daily. It's way down here. So it looks like all the JPY pairs are actually coming down. So if you look at EJ right here, we'll hide the SR indicator, turn on the momentum indicator. We do have a sell momentum right here. So if you guys took all of these sells from right here, so we had the sell momentum. If you entered a short position right there, it would have hit full TP for nearly 100 pips. Again, right here, price broke the zone, right? Enter another short position right there, another 100 pips. Price broke above the zone right here, and then we had another sell right here, break below it. So if you took another sell right there, another 100 pips, that's 300 pips from this sell momentum signal. And then again, right here, price broke below the zone again right here, right? Enter another short position, another 100 pips. That's 400 pips right there just from trading EJ. If you took, every sell momentum that broke a zone. So again, right here, price broke the zone. So I think currently there'd probably be another position running right now, right there. This would be the active position if you took this entry right here. And I do see it coming down. So it's probably going to come down and test this zone and then either reject off it or break below it and continue down further. So this is using the K2SR zone strategy. If you guys are familiar with it, that's the only strategy that I use for the Forex signals. Cadre said this the live. Yeah. So yeah, we're still live right now, bro. If you have any other questions that you want me to look over. But yeah, Hassan. So basically the way that strategy works, I'm just going to break it down for you real quick. Cause I know a lot of people get confused with that specific strategy. It is going to be the K2SR zone trading strategy on the 4-hour time frame. So basically the way that this works is your first requirement is going to be confirm a break and close past K2SR level. Then your second requirement is going to be confirm direction of momentum via the K2 momentum indicator. And then third, you can enter on the open of the following candle. So for this specific strategy, the first requirement is going to confirm a break and close. So right here, so if I go back and replay this, like I mentioned right here, confirm a break and close past the K2SR level. So this would be a break and close past it because this was level here, price broke it, then it closed below it. And then you could confirm the direction of momentum. So using that, you're going to make sure you look at the K2 momentum indicator. We have momentum coming down right here. So the first two requirements have been met. Once those have been met, you can enter on the open of the following candle. So we would enter right here, short position. So this would be an entry here. But on top of that, like you mentioned with, the momentum with the sell signal right here, this fulfills the same thing. So confirm or break and close past the K2SR level. So price right here broke this level and it closed below it, right? Then number 2, confirm the direction of momentum using the K2 momentum indicator. So momentum's coming down, this candle is closed, you can enter on the open of the following candle. So this would be an entry here as well. So this would be an entry, and it obviously would have been a win for 54 pips. This would also be an entry right here because price broke and closed past the K2SR level, momentum is coming down. So the trade continues lower. So obviously this would be a full TP too. And if we keep moving forward, you can see that this one, so this would be a little close one right here. Depending on where you drew your zone, if this, if your zone was a little lower and this price broke above it, because it's literally on the line. So if it broke above it and then the next one was a sell, then you could have entered this again right here for another short. But I guess right here, since it didn't break above it, it wouldn't be a valid entry. But even if we skip that one there, again right here. So same situation, confirm a break and close past the K2SR level. So this price broke and closed past this level right here. Momentum is still coming down because the last signal was a sell. So this would confirm a short position right there. And then that would have hit full TP again, right? So literally all of these would have hit. This is like 100 pips, 100 pips, 100 pips. And then again right here, another win. And then again right here, price broke the zone. Momentum is still coming down from this signal. Another short position right there. And then that would technically be, or it looks like it might have hit full TP or it might have not, depending on your spread. But there's a ton of ways to apply it. There's not just one way. So that's pretty much, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to make a new video of me breaking it down like even more simpler than what I did in that video. Cause I feel like a lot of people are still confused with this strategy. However, it's super simple. Like literally you just confirm a break and close, and then you look back to the previous signal and see if it was a sell or a buy. If it was a sell, then yeah, take a sell. Similar to right here. You got a buy signal, it broke and closed past the zone, long position, full TP. Again, right here, price broke below the zone on this green candle right here, it broke it and closed above it, right? The previous momentum was a buy. So you could have entered another buy right there for another full TP. It's really simple, but I feel like a lot of people make it more complicated than it really is. But I don't remember if I gave the parameters for EJ, but looking at EJ right here, this upper zone is going to be 122.381, and this lower zone is going to be 121.398. Let's go back to EN over here. 1 second, guys. I just need to do something real quick on the side. Get some water as well. All right. All right, guys, I'm back. So I'm back right here. Let's pull up the hide the momentum indicator, pull up the K2SR indicator, zoom out from here. Looks like the zones are pretty much the same. This isn't there anymore, so we delete that. Looks like the rest of the zones are pretty much the same. However, we have so we have some new zones right here. Just gonna stretch this down right here. And then we have one more new zone down here. All right, cool. So I'm gonna hide the K2SR indicator, and looking at current price right now, price is stuck within these two zones. This upper zone is gonna be 1.76406. And this lower zone down here is going to be 1.75837. So this trade's technically still active. If you guys have it running still from last week, let's see, this trade was called on the 27th. It did hit TP2 right here for 50 pips. So that's why I got stopped out in profit. However, it's still moving down. So it can still make its way down to full TP, especially with, a lot of the European countries going into lockdown. the NZD's probably just gonna keep coming down. But we'll have to see what happens when the market reopens. We have about 40 minutes till market reopen. I'm gonna try to zoom through these other pairs real quick so I can give you guys all of the zones before market opens. So let's go down to Euro USD right here. Let me zoom out. Let's see if the zones are the same from last week. So this zone right here is still all right. It's a little bit smaller though, so let's bring this up right here. These zones aren't there anymore because price hasn't been in this area for a long time. So let's hide these right here. Just make sure everything's covered. This bigger zone right there. Yeah, it looks like everything is pretty much the same. So I'm gonna hide this indicator. So this upper zone right here is going to be 1.16884. And this lower zone down here is going to be 1.16204. So I do see it continuing downwards. Like I mentioned, a lot of the UK has gone into, or not just the UK, but a lot of Europe has gone back into lockdown. So if that happens, you know, it's probably going to keep coming down further. However, the US elections are coming up on Tuesday. So this might see some whipsaws. You might see the spike up, spike down, spike up, spike down. So I'd be careful if you're trading anything paired with the US dollar this week. Let's move on to the, sorry, I don't remember. I literally forgot if I gave you guys these parameters. Let's give it to you guys again. This upper zone is going to be 1.16882, and this lower zone down here is going to be 1.16205. Move on to the next one, GA. I'm just going to try to speed through this because we have about 18 minutes until the next candle closes. I mean, until the market reopens. So just want to make sure you guys have these zones on your chart before that happens. I'm going to hide this right there. Going to hide these zones. So that zone is the same. I'm going to delete this one. It's not there anymore. Let's see. Everything else looks pretty much the same for the most part. Yeah, everything looks good. So right here for GA, zoom out from there. And this upper zone right here is going to be 1.85137. And this lower zone down here is going to be 1.83330. So those are the two zones right there. Like I mentioned, the market isn't opened yet. So until the market opens, it's going to be hard for us to really like analyze these pairs. This session is more so just to provide you guys with these zones so that you guys can see where to trade and where not to trade once the market reopens. So let's move on to the next one, GCAD. Let's see if these zones line up with last week. So this zone got a little tighter. Move this up a little bit. This zone got a little tighter as well. This zone got a little wider. All right, cool. So everything lines up perfectly as it did last week. I'm going to hide this indicator. Price is currently on this line. So I'm going to give you this upper zone right here, which is, it is 1.72912. And this lower zone down here is going to be 1.72238. So those are the two zones for GCAD. Let's move on to the next one, GBP CHF. Turn on the K2SR indicator, zoom out. Just want to make sure the zones are not the same from last week. And they are. It looks like price just didn't really move that much since the previous week. Looks like these zones got a little tighter. So I'm going to hide these right there. Actually, looks like this zone isn't even there anymore. So let's looks like these connected over here. And I think that's about it. It doesn't look like we could leave this down here. This is the higher time frame zone. So looking at price currently right now, price is currently within these two zones. So this lower zone down here, let me zoom out so you guys can see. This lower zone right here is going to be 1.18173. And I'm going to avoid this zone because price is already above it. So this next zone up here is going to be 1.18807. So those are the two zones within where price currently is. And you know, the thing with GBP-CHF is that this pair specifically ranges more than it does trend. So you can see here price trended for a bit, and then it ranged, and then it trended for a little bit, and then it literally ranged for about, how long has it been ranging for now? It's been ranging for about 33 days. So that's a long time for it to be ranging. I'd probably wait for it to break above. If it breaks above right here, it could probably shoot up. However, if it breaks below down here, it could keep dropping. So I would just be patient with this pair specifically. It's not one of my favorite pairs to trade. So if you trade it, be careful because they usually range. And you know, the last thing you want to do is get into a trade and then be stuck in that trade for months because it doesn't break out of this range for a long time. Let's move on to this next one, GJ. Let's pull up the K2SR indicator. Hide these zones. Looks like the zones are pretty much the same for the most part. Yeah, that zone's still there. Zone's still there as well. Looks like this zone tightened up a little bit right here. This zone right here. This zone isn't here anymore. All right, cool. So everything is pretty much good. Zoom out from here. Price is currently within these two zones right now. So this upper zone right here is going to be 135.667. And this lower zone down here is going to be 135.058. So that's where price currently is for GJ. Move on to the next one, GN. Turn on the K2SR indicator. Let's hide that. So it looks like pretty much majority of these zones are pretty much the same as last week, except this one kind of moved up a bit. So we'll connect to that one. And then there's another small zone right here. GN's a bit of a messy pair too, so we might have to readjust this during the trading week. But yeah, just looking at it right here, because the thing with GN is that it moves so fast, so that even though this zone looks really small, it's like they're 25, 30 pips. So that's why this provides for, you know, our ability to trade within these little zones because they move a lot faster compared to other FX pairs that we follow. So prices right here currently, the upper zone right here is going to be 1.95759. And this lower zone down here is going to be 1.95448. Move on to the next one, GU. Let's turn on the SRs right here. Let's see, zones are the same above. The middle zones are pretty much the same as well. It looks like all the zones are pretty much the same, except for this one right here that kind of spread it out a little bit. So let's zone that, move that up. We'll hide this SR indicator. So where price currently is right here, the upper zone is going to be 1.29782, and this lower zone down here is going to be 1.29302. So those are the two zones for GU right there. Move on to the next one, Ncdcad. Just gonna untick these because I had these that I was looking at last week, but I didn't call the trades. So let's turn on the K2SR indicator. Same thing we're doing here. Hide these zones. There's no zone up there anymore. The lower zones line up pretty decently, so let's leave it as is. So price is currently right here in the middle. This upper zone right here is going to be 0.88396, and this lower zone down here is going to be 0.79987. So those are the two zones for Ncdcad. Next one is Ncdchf. 1 second, guys. Let me check this real quick. All right, cool. So back to Ncdchf. looks like these zones line up. Let me, so we could delete this upper zone. It's not really there anymore. We could just push this up a little further. We can move this up a little further. A small zone is created right there. I think that's about it. So looking at Ncdchf right here, price is currently right here. Let me turn off the SR indicator. Price is currently right here within these two zones. So this upper zone right here is going to be 0.60710. And this lower zone down here is going to be 0.60542. So those are the two zones right there for Ncdchf. Move on to the next one, Ncdjpy. Market opens in about 9 minutes, guys. So I'm gonna try to zoom through this so you guys can have these zones on your chart. And then we can always go over questions later. If you guys want me to hop on later at a later time, like maybe tonight, once the market has actually been moving, we can hop on. However, like I mentioned, the US elections are in 2 days. So we're probably gonna take this week easy. I'm probably not gonna call too many trades until elections are over. So let me delete these zones. They're not on there right now. We got these two zones right there. Everything's pretty much lined up. This is a higher time frame zone. So I'll hide this SR indicator. Price is currently right here within these two zones. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this lower zone right here, which is 68.693. And this upper zone right here is going to be 69.406. So that's it for Ncdjpy. Move on to NZDUSD right here. Turn on the K2SR indicator. It's going to go and adjust these right here because price has just moved over a little bit. Delete this indicator. I mean, this zone. Delete this. All right, cool. Everything looks fine. So I'm going to go and hide this indicator. And price is currently right here within these two zones. So this upper zone right here is going to be 0.66403. And this lower zone down here is going to be 0.65842. So that's it for NZDUSD. Here's UCAD right here. Check the zones right here for the K2SRs. Let's see, they line up pretty much the same. I can just connect these two right here. And move this down a little bit. And then move this down a little further as well. So this zone route down here is kind of huge, but it doesn't really matter because price is way up here. I don't expect it to come down within a week or so. I mean, elections are in 2 days, so maybe it might drop. However, I don't see it dropping like that drastically. But price is currently right here. I'm going to skip this zone because it's so close. The next zone up here is going to be 1.33414. And this lower zone down here is going to be 1.32594. So those are the two zones for USD CAD. Move on to the next one, USD CHF. I'm going to turn on the K2SR indicator, see if they match up with last week's zones. They line up perfectly. Looks like there's a new zone that was created right here. What we can do is we can just move this zone down because it's pretty close right there. Looks like there's no zone here anymore. So I'm just going to move this down to here. And there we go. We have all the zones lined up here. I'm going to hide the K2SR indicator. Price is currently within this zone over here. So this upper zone is going to be 0.91799. And this lower zone down here is going to be 0.91625. So those are the two zones closest to price currently for USD CHF. All done with that. Last pair we're going to look at is UJ. So I'm going to go ahead and delete, or actually this is still active. So if you guys have this, most of us got closed out at TP2 right here for 25 pips. If you guys are still in the trade, it's a little bit of a risky trade at this time. But like I said, with the US elections coming up in the 2 days, the strength is probably going to go from the US dollar to a safe haven currency like the JPY. So we could probably anticipate this to spike down when market reopens in 5 minutes, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. However, I think most of you guys would have gotten out of this trade because I did recommend that you guys close out in profit, before market close. Yeah, Velocity, it's still live, but I'm about to get off right now. I'm just analyzing the last pair right here, and then I could probably get on a little later if you guys need me to. However, like I mentioned, with elections coming up, I don't think you guys should really take too many risky trades at this time. So let me finish analyzing this right here. So this zone actually connects. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one, bring this down right here. Let me see these other zones over here. So it looks like all of these right here pretty much line up the same. Let's move this up a little bit. And it looks like there is another zone that created right down here. So everything lines up pretty much with last week, except there's a couple new zones. I'm going to hide the SR indicator. Price is currently right here right now. The upper zone from here is going to be 104.944. And this lower zone down here is going to be 104.512. So those are the two zones nearest to price currently. Let me just look. I'm going to analyze this a little bit just to see where it's moving. So we still have a sell momentum signal right here. However, price rejected right off the zone. So price came down, rejected off the zone, and then it shot right back up. So we have to wait and see what happens. Market opens in about 3 minutes. So if you guys want to take a look at UJ, I don't know how price is going to move until maybe later tonight, because price last is stabilized. A lot of stuff happened over the weekend. A lot of European countries went back into lockdown, so that's going to affect the market. Also, with U.S. elections coming up in 2 days, that's going to affect the market too. So what I recommend is you guys don't really enter trades until maybe tomorrow. I'm going to look at trades anyways tonight to see if there's any entries. However, I'm probably not going to really enter anything, or if I do enter something, the risk is going to be super low. I'm not going to take any full-on positions until market is for sure confirmed how it's going to move post US elections. But yeah, guys, so that pretty much goes that pretty much goes all the zones for all these pairs that we watch. So if you want to go back and see what the parameters are for the zones on these previous pairs, just go ahead and rewind the live to that specific point in time, because I did go in these all in order. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to message me on Telegram. Otherwise, I'm probably going to go live again maybe later tonight if it's, even worth going on. Probably not because of the elections coming up. But if not, I will be going live for our normal Tuesday and Thursday session. So we'll probably let the market move a little bit, and then maybe we'll hop back on Tuesday or Thursday, or Tuesday and Thursday, to see where the market has moved since then. But yeah, guys, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me on Telegram or through email. Otherwise, I think you guys should probably play it safe this week. Play it safe because there's a lot of stuff going on this week. Elections being the biggest thing, but also the other lockdowns that are happening. I think the European countries are going back into lockdown on Thursday. So once that happens, a lot of stuff can happen in the market, pushing the Euro pairs and the GBP pairs down. But yeah, guys, hope you guys enjoy this. Just a reminder, I have this every Sunday, sometimes on Monday if I don't do it on Sunday. And what I do is I pretty much mark up all the zones for you guys, so you guys have an edge in the market right when the market reopens. But here we go, guys. Market opens in about 1 minute. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. And then hopefully we have a great trading week, along with this election season coming up in the next 2 days. But yeah, guys, I'll catch you guys.